what? What are you doing here? What, were you expecting some kind of funny sketch? Immigrants Decade? Like, maybe I'm editing a photo that really sucks and more or less like whoever tells me that I just suck at taking photos instead of being from a different dimension, or me being an entirely different person. Have you seen the temperatures? It is like almost -5 here in the heart of the United States. Maybe next time, but enjoy the Decade review when it's hopefully less cold.
Hello, and happy post-holiday week. Welcome to another Toku Ramblings. The cold snap of the season is out, and unfortunately I'm still feeling a bit cold because this week is Kamen Rider Decade, or Decade, however you want to say it. Say it. Where to start this? I guess with a basic synopsis. So the series follows Tsukasa Kadoi. Yeah, a person who has no memories of his past and just wants to capture everything on his camera. Despite his complete apparent lack of talent in taking photos of any kind, since they all turn out distorted. He just claims that this is not his world, or whatever those artistic people like to claim. He's currently employed at the Hikari studio, run by the eccentric owner Eijiro Hikari and his granddaughter Nuts Hikari, who Tsukasa nicknames Nuts who constantly scolds him for wasting people's time and money and pitches his cheek to make him do the most normie kind of weird laugh, like pain thing ever. I never got what this was supposed to be. It just feels so weird. Anywho, besides keeping Tsukasa initially in check, Natsumi has also been dreaming about this big, massive writer, whereas every other writer is trying to destroy one specific writer, Decade. Again, or Decade. Decade, I just like saying how about this. Anywho, one day the city's attacked by monsters and worlds start colliding from differing places, and during this whole thing, Tsukasa meets with Kamen Rider Kiva, Wataru Curran, who calls him Decade and is for some reason confused why he doesn't have his equipment, which he finds soon afterwards thanks to Natsumi to become Decade, and as informed of his mission. Travel through the 9 universes created from previous Heisei writers to prevent the worlds from collapsing by destroying them. And now, for some reason, the Hikari studio is now a dimension-hopping place depending on whatever picture shows up on the wall. So, I will give props where props is due. The first episode of Decade is decent. It's good. It's not the best opening episode I think this series has ever done, but I think it sets up a decent mystery and overarching arc for the season as a whole. There's some good use of previous powers to give like a little snippet of what's to come. And look, the end of the episode does show more or less, someone. That's the end. No, it's the next. But I think it's a good setup to an interesting concept. Here's the problem. There's only 9 worlds, and even though the season is 20 episodes shorter than the usual Kamen Rider / Sentai thing, that's only, if we're going by the two episode structure, that's 19 episodes out of around 30, and even then, we'll get the so after that and like free filler arcs, and we get the new plot. 6 episodes before the finale. Now Shocker is back as Dai, or Great Shocker, intent on conquering the multiverse. And we get two more tributes in the form of a black tribute, which I'm fine with that since Black RX did tentatively air during the Heisei period, and then Amazons, because I have no idea why they chose Amazons. It's such a weird choice, and again, the issue with it is that it feels like this was meant to be more of a series, but again, 6 episodes from the finale, so we learn nothing about who they are. Or how did Chakra come back? How can they travel the worlds? And much of what the early mystery stuff is thrown out, which, yes, is because they changed writers midway through because the producer and the head writer at the time, Sho Aikawa, couldn't agree on things, so Toshiki Inui's protege Shoji Yonemura was brought in, but it would have been better to finish the story that was initially set out, instead of trying to start something new. No, and unfortunately, in my opinion, the cast really doesn't help things. I mean, Tsukasa is unique for writer tags. I think the mystery of more or less, he was clearly Decade before he lost his memory. And he's proved to be quite a skillful, if basically Gary Stu kind of character. There is interesting and his overall personality. He is fun to watch, and I'm gonna spoil this right. He is probably one of the better things. Especially later on, he's probably one of the saving factors of this show. Not because it's a good thing, but more not guilty pleasure. You want to see him do all the Gary Stu sort of things, and unfortunately, this has the issue of a lot of shows where there's a Gary Stu where the cast doesn't really more or less challenge or even do anything, which Natsumi is shown initially to be sort of his person who keeps him on track or keeps him in line, but she mostly just becomes a cheerleader, for lack of a term, believing in the best of him and that he would never do anything wrong, and has way too moments of damsel in distress, in my opinion, for a character who should not have been that. And then there's the grandfather. He's there as comic relief and more or less the one person not in the loop, but maybe is because of Movie War 2010. I don't know, and I really didn't care. Here, he was just a fun grandpa who was clearly unaware of what was going on, but that's not the big thing. The big thing was, of course, Decade was an anniversary show. Decade could become every previous writer. Very well, specifically Heisei writers, through the use of his writer cards. And they got back 2 actors. Now, I don't hate the idea of the AR writers. They were not going to get back some actors. Joe Odagiri, no, that was never going to happen. He was taking acting really serious at this point, and after the whole Hibiki fiasco, yeah, that was not happening. That bridge was burnt to a crisp and was never being resurrected. And again, the Hibiki fiasco, they weren't getting back that main actor. Kabuto's had a main actor. Lead actor. Don't know why I was saying main or head. But actor. Again, his career was taking off big time, so getting him back wasn't. And again, I don't think I need to mention Takeru Sato. Sato. This was kind of before the point where people were willing to come back on a consistent basis. That being said, the execution again is not good. the main one we spend time with is the Kuga. Is Kuga's AR writer Yusuke Onodera, which makes things all confusing because it's the first name just with a different one, so I kind of sometimes forget. He gets his arc initially because Kuga, and by extension Hibiki, were the only shows where Seiji Tagawa was not the main suit actor, so it kind of made sense. And I don't hate Yusuke Onodera because he's not Kuga, or he fails to represent him. I hate his character because he's a useless, whiny layabout who, despite being the tertiary actor, transforms very few times and mostly is there to get his ass handed to him. Yeah, I don't. And the only AR writer I like in this series is Ryuki's. Because unlike the others who have their arcs or either don't have enough time or are kids, teenagers. Why did we cast teens? Well, kids, why? I'm trying to understand those things specifically. Because it's just a weird thing that doesn't make sense. It's because I feel his arc is the better ones, and the Ryuki world is probably, in my opinion, the most interesting of the AR worlds that this visit. Taking the game aspect and putting it into a lawyer kind of thing is neat, in a way. I just wish we got more time to spend around it, because the whole two-part structure really kind of cripples some of these things, because some worlds are interesting, like a world where Fangires and humans have to coexist. That is interesting. I want to explore that world, but we're 2 episodes and we're on to the next place. Though then again, not all of them are winners, like Blade's business writer thing, and weirdly, more or less, that becomes one of the more focal things by the end of the show. I guess I also like Hibiki's stuff. That's also kind of interesting. I think they reuse some music. I thought Deno's was interesting. Seeing one, because they actually got back the OG original actors for the Taros and the Deno liner, and then at the end they sort of ruined it by casting a child, and essentially making it a tie-in to the new Deno movies, because we really need more Deno. But yeah, the other AR worlds are just not, I don't think are too interesting. I don't think Phase's this high school setting is interesting. Agito's is not too different from, which I guess is also not that. And Kabuto exists. That's honestly, unlike, this is arguably going to be the big thing, but Go Kaiser, yes, was very much a fan servicey series. There was fan service up the wazoo. So it was everywhere. But there was a respect, a care, a passion, and it sort of does get you to want to go and maybe watch those old seasons if you haven't watched it. It's actually a kind of decent intro as sort of a history back on 45 years of Sentai. That Decade isn't that. It feels, none of the shows are, you're never given a good piecemeal of the show, and even then it's probably not the most accurate thing. Like, I gotta tell you, this Phase is not a high school drama. Or Blade is about corporate drama. Yeah, there are some elements, and yes, I have not, when I watched this, I had only watched Kuga and Ryuki. So my knowledge of the other series was limited, but I didn't feel as confused when I was watching Gokaiger. Okay, because yes, they weren't as integral to the plot, but it was more just a wink sort of thing. I got off track. You're time to talk about the other decent. There's around the Blade arc, they end up running into this character named Daiki Kaito, a thief who can use a gun to transform into D. And he's second favorite because he's the only real character who sort of more or less plays a good bounce off of Tsukasa, and that unlike the rest of the cast, which sort of kind of just exist around him, and Daiki sort of just plays like the troll of the group. And it offers a new dynamic that I think really helps the show, since Natsumi kind of became the cheerleader, as I stated earlier, and you know, before he went yandere in Superhero Taisen, I thought this was decent. He's not the greatest, but at the same time, he's not the worst. Though, again, I'll talk about this later when Phase comes around, but I kind of wish that more or less their personalities were a bit more like polar opposites. I kind of always prefer when writers are sort of like they're polar opposites. In terms of additional side characters, there's Now we're talking. Taki, this weird traveler who starts showing up in Kuga, blaming Decade for everything. He summons some evil / secondary writers across the series to fight Decade, and then they just disappear. Here, he just exists. Is he good? Evil? Somewhere in between? I mean, why does he have such a hate boner for Decade? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Shoaikawa had a plan for it before he chose to left and didn't share what exactly he was gonna do with him. And because later they make him a general of Die Shock. You see what I mean? Like, how this show is such a cluster word that I probably can say now. Also, it's past the point where YouTube is probably checking to see if I am doing things. A lot of the stuff in the early episodes is not really a thing in later episodes. But so, do you know how I mentioned that there were technically 2 returning actors? Well, Roger Rukurai's actor returns, and Kazuma's, and OR World Cosmo shows up at the end of the show. Show now saying they had to destroy Decade. Where was he during this whole thing? What did the other writers know about this whole thing? Right. We can't really figure that out because it's the end of the show, and we had to more or less save a lot of this stuff for the movie. Even though more or less Cosmo does not appear in the movie at all. Ugh. I guess before we talk about the movie, the suits, Decades is okay. The choice of magenta, it's not pink. It's not pink whenever you think it's magenta. That is a standout. I kind of wish it was a bit of a brighter shade of the color, so it could kind of stand out against the black and white. Those gauntlet things I feel are a bit too bulky. The abs feel fake. fake, but there are good elements. The barcode element for cards is neat and represents a bug. X is a good symbol for a decade. And the eyes, while initially weird, for how they were covered, does work. It's just that not all the elements come together. And that sort of kind of carries over to DA. And most of the problems I had with Decade Suit carry over to the ends, the abs, gauntlet. But don't get me wrong, I do like the gun tension device. It is unique, and we have not seen anything like that before, and I do like the Decade drive. I read a light that more or less kind of just, you pull out the more or less insert the card and you just kind of, like whatever he does, just make sure I can get this in. And when he does, that is satisfying. And here he Kamen Rider Decade, or just Decade. I like the jingles the belt has going for it. I could bring up every suit, but I'd be here for. But I'll probably talk about them. If you liked them in the previous series, you'll probably still like them here. Complete form is an abomination. Nation, or a lazy abomination. It is just a chest plate with the final form of all previous 10 Rider. All the magenta is traded out for black. Like putting it now around the chest plate. It is just gaudy, lazy, and just not an interesting final form. But it's a good thing that 20th Heisei season he got a better looking one. Music also kind of slaps a bit. Main theme's kind of a bop, but this mysterious feeling of it building towards the core. Where it finally goes off. Seeger does a phenomenal job in the lyrics. So, music-wise, the biggest thing I remember is just that riff that happens when Tsukasa transforms into Hika, like da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da. I probably am doing it completely wrong, but you probably know what I'm talking about. You mentioned how I really like the Ryuki one. Blades is bleh. But you know, they get the reference to the old memes about how the actor said stuff weird. Kobayashi. The Deno arc is actually pretty solid. The Evil Rider tribute's a thing. I wish that they were actually like AR versions of previous characters instead of just people pretending to be Natsumi's friends from the old world. Well, this episode also introduces this is the complete form, which sucks and I hate it. Yeah, there's some good sprinkled throughout this entire show, but it's just not enough to save a rather disappointing package, and I'm just gonna throw in the singular film here, All Rider vs. Daishock. Because there's nothing. Nothing. So Tsukasa more or less, they finally return to Tsukasa's old world and he gets his memories back. And it turns out he's the leader of Daishocker. Yep, they just revealed it out of nowhere. He's in reality the true leader of Daishocker. And he shows almost no kind of horror at the fact that he's revived such a terrible organization. He's more than willing to go back for it after he's essentially slain every other rider in the tournament he puts up. And now after all of this, that's not somebody finally dumps him and teams up with Daiki And, God, I keep forgetting his name, but then again, why do I? He's such a Narutaki. What is wrong with me? Why can I not remember? But, Decade gets betrayed because they're just using his little sister, and they meander around for a little bit, get a cameo from the show's singer, and now Tsukasa's ready to destroy Dai Shocker. After this is such a cobbled together. Not the Dai Shocker reveal, and like such as how Tsukasa acts, is just a complete slap in the face, which really kind of sours the character. They're knowing for a fact that he is willing to go back to who he used to be. I mean, that is awful. That is not good. And just nothing happened. And throughout this whole thing, and Nonomura's bad issue of resolving things with MacGuffins just shows up. All the riders defeated early come back to help save it. Yusuke gets a terrible evolution of the ultimate form that just completely ruined. Except with the extra addition of gold and just stuff. It's trying to be cool by adding pauldrons and spikes, but it just looks so edgy and trying too hard. Oh yeah, this was also the first show to bring in cameos of the future rider. And it more made me want to go watch double than continue to watch this. And you want to know the worst part? Nothing about this movie matters. The last two episodes bring up nothing of this, and outside of more or less later films making, well, I guess more specifically Tyson making Decade the leader of Dai Shocker, it's I went through it real quickly, but honestly, there's just much. They go to Tsukasa's world. Tsukasa remembers. There's a fighting tournament. Tsukasa reveals that he's the leader of Dai Shocker and decides to use Yusuke. They betray him. Natsumi wants nothing to do with him. He gets a pep talk. They fight, and that's it. Like, there are some bright spots in this show, in my opinion. Again, some of the tribute, Hibiki, I would need to watch Hibiki, Deno, and Ryuki are good tributes. But that's a very small number of them, and I mostly like Tsukasa and Daiki until they were ruined, though in Daiki's case he was retroactively ruined because I watched the other stuff before. Yeah, this is more a guilty pleasure. As an anniversary, this gives you very little of each season to even be considered, which again, which sort of did. But there was a lot more love and care packed into that compared to this. Most of the casts almost get nothing to do or just exist. As it's a confused story that starts things but doesn't do anything with them later. And it just ends because Toei needs to give more room for both their Toku franchise toys. That was because I guess releasing a bunch of toys in January is not a good thing. Who would have thought? But this is more curiosity, and again, some people will probably find something in this that I and probably a good chunk of other people did. We are all different people who like different things, so maybe you find a lot more enjoyable about Decade than I did. But overall, this journey for the Decade was not one worth taking. So, yeah. As always, do the things that make the YouTube algorithm happy with me. Comment if you actually think this is a decent series. And we'll be getting back to basics next week. Or 2 weeks after. See ya.